Hello everyone, Cienter here, and welcome to my life and channel update for October 2023. This is the part of the year that we've hit. It's starting to get chilly outside because I'm in the Northern Hemisphere where things get chilly outside in October. I was thinking, because it's approaching Halloween, that in the Southern Hemisphere, Halloween is a spring holiday, which hurts my brain. So, anyway, what has gone on this past month? That's always an interesting question to try to answer because time is weird, and memory of time is weird in particular. But I was reflecting on that a little bit, and there's a couple of key things. I've been continuing to work on some articles, and I had an article that I was trying to focus on like my relationship with my gender and sexuality and all of the stuff that's interconnected and is an absolutely enormous, challenging thing to write, but it's really important to process, and it's something that I realized I really needed to process. And partway through that, I was like, wait, I have another article that I need to write that I've been focusing on and is almost done. Maybe I'll even finish it later today, but no promises on that. Because I forgot that I was planning on doing this today, and then my little reminder popped up and told me, hey, you're going to record this today. I'm like, I was going to record this today, and so now I'm recording it. But anyway, it takes a while to write stuff, but that's part of what I've been... One of the big things that I've been doing lately is just trying to understand how I work better. I don't know if that sentence made sense. Language is weird and difficult to communicate ideas because of its language's inherent limitations. So I've been becoming more and more aware as like various individual pieces that I'm aware of are then getting connected together. Of some of the big challenges I have just functioning. There was a... When did I even watch that? There was a Healthy Gamer video about gifted people and the challenges that they face. That was really, really helpful for me. I'll see about trying to remember to include a link to that in the description. Did I watch that this month? Probably. Time is weird, like I said at the top. But I was always classified as gifted growing up. And academics was super easy for me, and then, like, halfway through college, it suddenly was no longer easy, and I had no tools for dealing with that, which made the latter part of my college time quite difficult. But what I've been having to try to deal with as these various things come together, I don't think I talked about it last time. Anyway, the challenge as these various things are coming together is that I'm having to figure out, and I've been figuring out a lot of different stuff. Maybe I should start with what I have figured out thus far. So I consider myself, like, there's two parts to myself, to the thing that I call me. And one of those parts, the one I tend to identify more with, is the will, the consciousness, the logic, intellect part, right? So I am calling that will because that's the motivating force, right? That's the activating force. It's an act of will. And then there is heart or emotion, subconscious, desire. So I have will and desire. And these are like the two parts of me. And they're both me, and I need to better identify with desire, the desire part of me. And I've been developing over time a better relationship between will, the part that my conscious self directly identifies with, and desire, which I'm attempting to identify with more because it's me also. This is extremely weird to talk about because we don't use this sort of language like hardly at all. But I'm recognizing like the two parts of my being here. And a lot of times I've tried to pit will against desire. Desire wants something, but I don't know what it is, or I'm not paying attention. And will is like, I need to do X. And desire's like, I don't want to do X. And will tries to force itself to do X, and desire's like, nah. And desire wins. Like those tug of wars a huge percentage of the time. Like it's got a winning record. And what I am working through internally right now, and some of this stuff is just things that were like coming together this past weekend. So I'm recording this on Thursday. It should go up today, but I don't know when you're watching this. So this past weekend, this was stuff that I was thinking about, and will and is like, I need these to be working in concert, and what this means is I need to, instead of trying to play tug of war, if my will says I want to do this, like if I'm intellectually saying I want to be doing this, or I feel I need to be doing this, which is even itself kind of complicated language, but I need to figure out how to get desire on board. And because if desire is not on board, if desire doesn't want to do it, then I'm going to have a really hard time doing it. So there's some ways that can sometimes work, but I'm trying to figure out how to be better in touch with myself, and understand, okay, what is it that my desires are saying it needs right now, or that it's looking for or wants. So there's a lot of like, I'm in a period that feels like it's very observational, where I'm trying to understand how to observe the cues and clues that desire is giving me and what those are saying. And this is really, really important, because one of the things that I want is to be more productive than I am. I feel frustrated that I'm not more productive. And it's weird that I'm separating emotion from desire, the desire part of me. But I think will has things that it wants as well. Or like, I don't know how to subdivide these things. Probably somebody who studied psychology more has a better understanding of what a better language to use for this. But regardless, I'm definitely identifying stuff here. So some of the things that I found is, if I've been thinking about something, because I found that I can send a problem to desire, to the subconscious layer, and it will work on it, and like then come up with stuff. And so one of the things that I've run into with like working on my game project, whatever shape it has at any given moment, and there's been some adjustment there as well this month, but whatever that is, like there's information that's coming from there that I need to be paying attention to, or I'm going to run into problems. And so I don't know, it's just a lot of language to say. I'm trying to figure out how to work with myself better, and I need to improve my internal dialogue between desire and will better, because when that internal dialogue is not good, which I've generally been fairly bad at, I think, reflecting back on it, because one of the, which conclusion do I do first? As I've been reflecting back on it, I've been thinking a lot about some with nostalgia. So there's in my experience two types of nostalgia, broadly speaking, with some overlap in the middle. There's the type of nostalgia where I think back to something from the past. So for example, when I was 16, my family went on a trip to Japan, and we went to an okonomiyaki bar in Hiroshima. And I remember that okonomiyaki, and it's a fond memory. And I'd like to find some place that makes okonomiyaki, but apparently there is none nearby, despite living in an area where there's a fairly substantial Japanese population, as I understand it, which is kind of sad, but that's beside the point. I can think back to that, and I can remember it fondly. And then there's the nostalgia where, instead of being like dipping back into a past emotional state, So like thinking about the time I first held a GameCube controller, right? That's another example of this sort of positive form of nostalgia, where I'm remembering something from the past that's a fond memory, and I can go back and I can remember the sensation of holding that thing and how amazing it felt in my hands. Like that, because keep in mind, the controller experiences I'd had previous to that were the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo 64, and probably like Game Boy Color. Maybe, I don't know when Game Boy Advance came out, but like these are things that are like holdable but not the best examples of ergonomics. And then the GameCube controller, I've got one over here actually. GameCube controller, it was an orange one, but this is my most intact GameCube controller. You know, it's got some actual ergonomic design to it, and it just felt like, even here I can think back to that first time holding it, it just felt so much better to hold than the N64 controller or a Game Boy Color or whatever. And I can think back to that memory and that experience, and it is a very fond memory, right? I've been on this too long. The other sort of nostalgia is the longing for something that you had in the past that you don't feel you have anymore. So some good examples of this that I've been feeling a lot lately. A lot of these go back to college. So I remember being able to go into my college's cafeteria at the time. It's since moved locations from when I was there. So it's very whole different vibes to the cafeteria, and it was never the same after the move. But at the time, the cafeteria was more a room with a bunch of tables and chairs that people could, and like some microwaves or something, I think. There was an area where there was some food, but as a separate room. Anyway, this cafeteria was an area where people would go and hang out and play Magic the Gathering. This is where I learned to play Magic the Gathering, by watching people play for over the course of my freshman year, and then I got into the game in my sophomore year, when Lorwyn released. So, you know. I was big into Time Spiral Block because it was great for crash course history of Magic the Gathering. But I remember that time really fondly, of being able to go there when I had a free moment and being able to find games of Magic the Gathering. And I miss that so much. I don't have the opportunity for casual constructed Magic the Gathering because I don't have anybody to do it with, right? It's not for a lack of time. It's for a lack of another person. And I miss that so much. I would love to be in a position where I could, like, as a bit of a side, I'd love to be in a position where I could make paper Magic content, paper Magic videos, where I'm just there to show up to play, and it's somebody else's job to figure out the whole process of getting it up on the internet, figuring out the cameras and all of that, production side stuff. I'm not great at that. But anyway, I have fond memories of that, but also I feel the absence of that from my life, and I want to be able to go back to that. I want that in my life again. And the other thing is just like the state of childhood, where the feeling of the expectations of others on me and everything was different, and it was like, okay, here's what success looks like, and it was through accident of birth and genetics and whatever else, the gift of God, however you want to qualify it. Academics was super easy for me, and the path to success and respect was therefore trivial. I could spend most of the time, I think, at that time, to tie it back to what I was saying earlier with will and desire. I think I could just follow my desire most of the time when I was like out of school, because I didn't have to spend very much time on any homework. I hated homework. I've always hated homework. But being able to spend a lot of time in that state, I think, was a happier state for me to be in many regards. So I don't know that there's always been as much tension, but with an adult, you're supposed to, like, I don't know, buckle up and will yourself to stuff, and I don't think I've been able to do that very well, because that's just not how it works for me. I don't know how it works for other people. And I'm wanting to figure out how to better interact with myself, and in particular how my will can guide my desire towards doing the things that my will wants to do, but also how can I throw desire some bones, and how can I be paying attention to desire, because desire will reveal needs to me as well. And maybe I'm actually talking about like 3 different things, not 2 different things. I don't know. I'm still figuring this out. But it's a process, and one of the things that I'm realizing is if I've been spending time figuring out how to solve a particular problem, then I want to go and implement that solution more. So like if I've had this classic tug of war where there's a thing that I want to do and the thing that I feel like I'm supposed to do, so I end up doing neither of those, which usually means social media or YouTube, which is not necessarily how I'm wanting to actually spend my time, but maybe how I'm actually wanting to spend my time is also not available to me for some other reason. But even regardless, if it's like, oh, I'd rather be spending my time playing this video game, but I feel that I can't do that because I need to actually do this other piece of work, and then I split the difference by not doing anything, which is just not helpful. It's neither what I want to do on one end nor what I want to do on the other end. So it's just been a whole process of trying to figure out how to work as me, which nobody's taught me, and maybe it's only now that I'm finally ready to learn it. I don't know. It's the sort of thing, the stuff that I'm working through right now, I wish I'd been working through 15 years ago, or more, because I think it would have been very helpful. But nothing made me have to confront it, and it's been a slow process getting to the point where I even can. As I don't know what am I doing? Building emotional intelligence? I don't even know the language for it. As I'm looking all over the place instead of directly at the camera. Instead, I'm looking at my enormous guacamole over there. I like guacamoles. They're very cute. Yeah, very cute. Have some cuteness. So anyway, that's the big thing that's been going on, and I've been wanting to get these articles done, and they have not been getting done the way that I want to, and part of it is because I feel like I need to work on one article, but my brain's stuck on another one where I've been trying to like solve stuff, and so I've been all split all over the place, and this tension between different directions has made it so that way I'm not doing a great job at resolving anything, and I'm trying to learn how to work with myself better. Part of that, working with myself better, is also trying to figure out the balance point for planning, which brings us back to the game, which I mentioned earlier. That is now going to pay off. So I've been doing some pivoting with where I'm going with the game, to try to streamline some aspects of it. But what I'm really trying to do is I have this problem where I get bogged down in lore details. And I've talked about this before. This is nothing new. What I'm trying to do is find the sweet spot. So the ways that games have gone wrong, like RPG Maker MV game projects have gone wrong for me, and I think this is not exclusive to RPG Maker MV, to be clear. I think this is something that's just going to be a universal challenge for me as a game creator, is I need enough design skeleton that I have something to work from, but not so much that I get bogged down in the little nitty-gritty details. I need to figure out the details through implementation, like in the process of making something. But if I'm starting too low, too much from scratch, then I end up running into problems where I need some sort of framework for those, and then it's a huge overhaul process, and everything's an enormous mess. So this is on both the mechanical and Narvazod sides. Narvazod just define that term, since it is one that's kind of unique to Vernacular Games, who I've worked with in the past. We made Highway to the Moon together, and a bunch of podcasts where we talk about all that game design stuff. But Narvazod is a coined term that comes from narrative, visual, and audio. We consider it the other part of the game, so there's the two legs, mechanics and Narvazod, that work together to support some central concept that you're trying to make. So what ends up so like lore falls under Narvazad, for example, and so typically you want, and a lot of people are going to use terms like ludonarrative and stuff to talk about these things as well, but generally what you want is you want your mechanics and Narvazad to work together towards a common concept where things are kind of making sense and forming a stronger whole. So it's this whole idea of games as a composite experience. I talk about this like every time I bring up Narvazad because there's going to be people watching this who have no idea what that term means, and I don't want them to be confused or left out. So there's a lot of mechanical elements where I need to figure out what is my mechanical foundation, and that needs to be done at a certain degree of detail, but doesn't necessarily need as much. What is the phrase I'm looking for? I need, like, basically what I'm trying to figure out is how much detail do I need in both of these to have enough to function on where there's cohesion. Like I have some sort of framework that I'm referencing off of, but not so much detail that I'm spending, like that I'm getting bogged down in the details and I don't have the satisfaction of feeling like I've actually made something. So I was running into this problem where I felt like I was getting bogged down in details. And one of the big areas where this happens to me is lore, because I really like a well thought out, consistently built world, like you see with J.R.R. Tolkien in Aya, Arda, whatever, Middle Earth, the whole shebang. My sister's been reading the Silmarillion to me as I cook on an occasion. So there's layers and depth to that, but like he's done so much work on making a really cohesive thing, and like Dark Souls is another good example of this, or like you have a lot of this with just in general the world building that Miyazaki is involved in, Hidetaka Miyazaki, if I remember his name correctly. I think I have. And so I really like that sort of cohesion of world building. Now, it's not necessary to have an interesting world. There's all sorts of weird world building things with Star Wars, for example, and people love Star Wars, and I'm quite fond of it as well. Guild Wars, Tyria, whatever we're calling that whole encapsulation of the mists and Tyria and everything. I think there's a lot of really interesting world building stuff there, but it is messy and it's got weird consistency issues. Like what is the rule of the gods and the way that their significance shifts from prophecies, release like lore documents to where things are now in Guild Wars 2 at Secrets of the Obscure. And I've been playing more Guild Wars 2, by the way, but I might touch on that in a moment, just briefly. So like there's different approaches to how world building is done, and there's a certain amount of like you backed yourself into a corner and have to figure out how to compensate on the fly. There's so many little things in Guild Wars 2 that feel like they were added as a way to try to compensate for design changes. Did you know at one point in time, Guild Wars 2 had a town clothes whole feature for town clothes that then got removed and eventually turned into a tonic that got turned into an outfit? And it's just like this whole windy passage. And so they have to have NPCs there just in case people have old stuff to be able to convert the old stuff into new stuff that's usable under the current systems. And it's just like you have this legacy implementation that you're having to deal with somehow. So that's a sort of problem where like, okay, how much do I need to plan out now so I don't have to do these overhaul things that then end up bogging me down? And RPG Maker MV is absolutely terrible for reorganizing anything. Although apparently they've just released a tool recently to help with that. I don't know. Haven't investigated that too thoroughly because I've been in the pre-production land rather than production land. But I was running into problems with the previous ideas that I had that were like, okay, there's too much here. I'm getting just caught up in details and I'm not getting anything done. And like, okay, I want to pivot to something that's more freeform and open, but how in terms of like, I'm not getting as bogged down in details, but then I need to, plan out those layers. And it's like, okay, how much planning do I need to do to have something to actually build this off of without spending like getting caught up so much in planning because I need to actually figure out most of what I'm doing during implementation. I just need to have enough of a framework, and I'm still trying to figure out what that sweet spot is, which I've said in so many words. So that's mostly where I'm at with things. I have been playing more Guild Wars 2, like I've said. I've been doing a lot of the Halloween stuff lately. I've been doing a playthrough on a character from more or less the end of the personal story, late or through to catch up, and I'm currently, because I haven't seen personally experienced the story like incrementally or whatever. Like I played through I've played through all the expansion stories on another character, but I haven't played through most of the Living World. So I was able to see Living World Season 1. So good that they added that back in. Then I played through Living World Season 2, Heart of Thorns. Now I'm right at the end of Living World Season 3, and then Halloween dropped, and that's all I've been doing when I play the game. But I think that covers things. I have been getting an urge to go back into Elden Ring, though. I've been watching a lot of Elden Ring videos of various kinds, challenge runs and whatnot, bingo races, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, it's been giving me an urge to jump back in. Plus, I have a friend that's been playing through it, regaling me with where he's at. So, well, I feel my throat getting real itchy, so I need to go ahead and wrap up. Oh, there you go. So until next month, everyone, and whatever my next release is, I've had some various ideas bopping around my head, but I've been caught up in writing articles. Until that next time, take care and goodbye.